Budenholzer has been like a breath of fresh air. I really think that he has like instilled, especially learning from his days in Milwaukee, to learn how to deal with star players, right? Middleton and, Giannis, and then you have Drew Holiday when he was the coach. And I saw a video. I wanted to bring this up because I thought it was really like kind of cool to see. When you think of Kevin Durant, you think of him being a prolific scorer and, really good player with the basketball. And I feel like now he's kind of taking that leadership role. For example, Nurkic had the ball, it was in the post. He missed a shot, he got the offensive rebound, and there was a guy, I forget who was open around the 3-point arc. It was one of the best shooters on the Suns. I'm blanking, but the Sun shooter was wide open, and Nurkic put the ball back up instead of dishing it out for three. And Kevin Durant yelled in his face and was like, "Pass the ball. This is not just a one-man show." So I think the accountability, the maturity aspect, and if you look at Kevin Durant, he doesn't have much time left, right? And I think the Achilles heel injury has played a huge factor for his career, as we know. But I think he sees that window slowly closing. And that's why I think Kevin Durant's now becoming the leader of the Suns. One, because he does want another crack at that title. And two, he knows he doesn't have enough time. So you're seeing it across the board. Again, LeBron having a tremendous year so far. Last year, he was just as good. But we're seeing it with Kevin Durant. He's really taken that leadership role. And it's been an example on the court and off the court. And I think Nurkic at this point has to like appreciate it or respect it. So I really like what I saw out of that video. And Budenholzer, I feel like, is getting the locker room adjusted. When you think of, Frank, I'm blanking his last name, but Frank Vogel, he was not the coach for them last year. They needed a guy that knew how to, change the attitude of the locker room and really hold players accountable. And, with the championship pedigree that Budenholzer has, I think he can get the respect out of the players and get them to buy in. And you're seeing it. I think that's a bought-in example with Kevin Durant getting in Nurkic's face and saying to dish out the ball. So we're seeing a little bit of maturity growth when it comes to Kevin Durant. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of a KD fan. I know he hasn't, a lot of people early in his career were on him. Then he goes to the Warriors, and there's the narratives there, and then goes to Brooklyn, and that super team obviously kind of blew up very quickly
in his face.
When Kyrie refuses to play, and then James Harden, they make the trade with Harden and Simmons, and when they get Harden in, and he obviously also refused to play.
No one wants to play basketball.
Right, exactly. Nobody wants to play. So then it's like, all right, KD, like you chose to go to the Nets instead of the Knicks, which people were surprised by. And he builds that team, kind of blew up, goes to Phoenix, kind of rebuilds this super team with Beal and Booker. And they obviously did, they get swept in the first round by the Timberwolves last year, as famously. So you're looking at KD and you're like, wow, like you said, window's closing. What's his legacy going to be? And he's always been someone that I almost think in a way is similar to like Aaron Rodgers in the sense that like, yeah, he has a title.
Yep.
But do people really respect him? No, they want to see him win again. And he's got to kind of do it on his own. And I agree with that for his legacy. It would be huge if he won a title as the guy. Yep. Because even though he was the MVP of those two finals with the Warriors, that was Steph's team.
It was. But
he's the heart of it. When you think of the Warriors, you think Steph, you think Clay, and as much as Durant like may have been needed to win, I mean, I don't know if they needed him or not, but like as much as Durant was unbelievable in those finals, and he has those highlights of like stepping up and draining threes in LeBron's face, and the games weren't even close because they were so much better. I think he needs another ring on his own and doing it as the leader, and he doesn't have that, but he'll have a chance to with the Suns potentially this year, which I would like to see. One thing I was thinking of, like, and it may not work out this way because they're having success, but I was curious if like this Suns experiment failed, and I think he would be a really good fit there. Does he go back to OKC?
OKC. Yep.
because they need a scorer. That offense, they have Shea, but like, can you really count on anybody else? And I like Holmgren, Jalen Williams. They're young, nice pieces, but if you need a bucket and you lock up Shea, you try and take Shea away, there's no one else you really trust to
No.
score on their own or get their own in that team. But Durant does that for you. Durant opens things up. And he's not as ball, Shea can still play on the ball, bring it up, and they can have Durant play off ball, and it would work. Once again, this is all like.
Yeah, but I was going to say, Ticket, like, he's a lethal scorer, right? And so, yeah, absolutely, he would fit in perfectly. It's funny, you bring up OKC, and I was just thinking, I was like, oh, man, if Sam Presti just kept that team together, like, if he found a way just to keep it together, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, those guys were so dominant that who knows what that could have been. But yeah, and one thing about KD is like the Olympic side of things, really, like, he relishes that. He wants it. And so I think you're seeing it now that he wants more of the gold, right? And the championship caliber, type of title. And without that, again, as he's on a huge drought, you kind of look at his career, and I agree with you. I think that's a perfect parallel. I think he is the Aaron Rodgers of the NBA until people can acknowledge that he can do it with little. Well, I wouldn't say little because Devin Booker's a hell of a player, and so is Bradley Beal. But he could be.
He would be the guy.
The guy, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So let's flip it over to the Sixers, because here's the issue with the Sixers. Philadelphia, God help you guys. I mean, it's just one of those things where you look at Philly, it's always the expectations going into the year, right? Oh, they got, even the Al Horford days. Oh, they got Al Horford, and they got Tobias Harris, and they got Ben Simmons to go along with Joel Embiid. Well, who do they got this year? Well, Paul George gets hurt in preseason. Joel Embiid gets hurt, and then he possibly could get suspended for tampering. And then you have Tyrese Maxey, who's trying to do everything on his own. And you have Nick Nurse twiddling his thumbs on the bench saying, what am I going to do with this team moving forward? And then you got, Daryl Morey in the front office that's probably like, why the hell did I sign Paul George to this deal when they're coming up with this piece of crap offense and their defense has been so bad? They're 2-9. They're struggling immensely. I would be pulling out my hair if I'm Philadelphia 76ers fan. And you think about it, like I said, the expectations going into the season, the Philadelphia 76ers have always been, especially in recent memory, hype. That's what it's always been about. Joel Embiid is going to be Hakeem Olajuwon or Shaq this year. He's going to dominate the paint. Well, guess what? He's shooting threes in the playoffs. Good luck with that. Tyrese Maxey, one of the best prolific scorers. I arguably can compare him to De'Aaron Fox. When he's red hot, he is unstoppable. Paul George, what is he, 33 years old now? You think you're going to get anything out of him? Well, guess what? He gets hurt in the preseason. Now, I'm going to pump my brakes because I understand it's early. But I do not see success for Philadelphia moving forward. And a big reason why, they have zero bench. Their bench blows. So good luck to Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and Embiid trying to do everything on its own and trying to figure out a way to do it, because I'll tell you what, Nick Nurse, he's got to be pulling out his hair. He's going to be bald by the end of the year. They're just going to be that bad. And I feel bad for Maxey. I like Maxey. I think he's a hell of a player. But Joel Embiid's a goof. Paul George, he's here for the show. He's in Philly, trying out the cheesesteaks, gets hurt in preseason. What can you say? Philly's going to be in a tough situation.
I just feel like that's the microcosm of like the Sixers, like, trust the process is that they just underwhelm.
Yeah.
And I mean, even going back to when they were they were the 1 seed that year, and then the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young knocked them out in the second round. In 6 games.
Yep.
But the one silver lining for them is Jared McCain. I guess he's actually been pretty good. As much as like I kind of I hate Duke,
Yeah,
and I always kind of like clown on my Duke fan buddies because like McCain was on TikTok dancing and like it was a brutal
he's a
watch. Like if you're
character.
drafting someone,
He's a character.
if it's a fan base, I would hate for my team to take Jared McCain in the first round.
Yep.
But he's been pretty good. He's shooting about 46% from the field. I think he's averaging like 13 or 14 a game, taking advantage of the minutes he's been getting because of all the injuries. So I mean, that's maybe the one silver lining for the Sixers is like maybe they have something with McCain that they kind of fell into because he's been forced minutes. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we might be looking at an off season, and this is like way too early to talk about. But like
No, you
the
could say
Sixers
it.
and Bucks continue this bad,
Yep.
you might talk about like Giannis and Embiid being on the trade block because both the Bucks and Sixers want to blow it up and rebuild.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, if I'm any team, I'm being very, very cautious with Embiid. Embiid's getting very, very old and with his body. He gets lazy on the defensive side. He shoots threes when he's tired because he knows he can't get in the paint and be himself. I think Embiid's got to be very, very careful with the road he could be heading down. As far as his season goes, or even the career at this point, because he has had so much, banged up injuries, but also the buildup, right? The expectations that takes a lot mentally too, because you feel like you're in it, and when you're 2-9 to start the year, well, guess what? You're not in it. So enjoy, Cancun again. If this keeps up, and you got Paul George back in the mix, and you're tampering during the playoffs last year on the TV broadcast to try to get him to come to Philly. Well, guess what? He's in Philly now. And guess what? He got hurt because it's just the Philly way. It's just I feel bad for the Philadelphia 76ers fans in a
Do you?
way. I do when it comes to how much like how terrible of an environment it has been, for them, like looking afar. Like, I'm not saying that I'm a Philly fan, but like I was a big AI fan back in the day. I liked AI. And like I look at the 76ers and I'm saying, what more do they need to do? And like I like Maxey, but their team is just not well built. And we have a GM like Daryl Morey that should know what he's doing on the court. You just kind of shake your head. It's like, why are you going out and getting Paul George at 33 years old and giving him a huge freaking contract? He's not going to live up to that. I feel like, and if you're Paul George, knocking on the door should have been Golden State, and Golden State did want him. But guess what? He wanted to team up with Embiid, and he wanted to be a part of this mess. So you know what? Do I feel bad for Philly fans in general with the team? Yes. For where they're headed? Yes. But as a fan base, they're brutal. They're absolutely brutal. But again, if I'm looking at the team, I'm just like, put my hands up, throwing a white flag in. This team's over. It's done with. It's early. Yes, I get it. 2-9 to start. But my goodness, are they going to have struggles throughout the year? And it's going to be continuous. So let's see if Philly can figure it out. They won't. Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic on that either.
No. Milwaukee, same thing. Milwaukee, I think they're having a hard time. Doc Rivers, wherever he goes, we know what happens to Doc Rivers teams. A lot of times
most overrated coaches of all time.
Most overrated coach of all time is correct. I totally agree. And with that being said, we will get into more NBA talk next week. We also want to get into some MLB conversation, as we know that Juan Soto is out there in the free agent storm of the MLB. He's taking visits from teams, your Yankees, my Red Sox, New York Mets, Toronto Blue Jays are in conversations. There's a lot of free agent talk in the MLB, so we'll get into that. Plus, we'll get into some NBA and get our picks in with the BDE belt, all that, and fun. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks, Take It.